We have no idea what grace means. Could you guys define it for me? I've been reading, I've been studying, I've been doing a ton of work to try to get to this point, and I still can't easily define it. And so I'm gonna do a little bit of my best efforts to get in this, but like this topic of grace is confusing. It can be a noun, it can be a verb, it can be an adjective. Again, the context is what determines its meaning. The context is further complicated when the word is associated with the actions or inactions of a person or the creator of the universe. So how do we balance it? How do we start even teaching from it if not just from a singular perspective? We hear things like it's by God's grace that no one got hurt, or she was graceful in her movements, or our boss will be gracing us with his presence. Grace is used in humility and desperation, sarcasm, justice, and passions of love and hatred. And I'm aware that I'm being a little bit nitpicky already today between microphones and these words, but it's important because these complicated ideas, especially when you start attaching them to your spiritual walk, your understanding of who God is, needs to be broken down. It has to be. We've joked about this before, but the word love is a strange one because there is these smaller forms of love that it's appropriate. Like I love tacos, and I mean it in that like I love tacos. They're so good and so versatile. It's an edible plate. They're amazing. Um, and then I also love my wife. I don't love my wife on the same level of tacos, and amen and good. But I mean both of them. And so I don't need to like do this massive work of like changing my language of all this stuff and be like, I really enjoy and like tacos. And people are like, why are you talking like that? And it's like, just say you love tacos and we'll be fine. And we'll all know what you mean. We do the same thing with the word grace, right? And we start inserting our understanding of the word grace. Maybe grace that you've handed to somebody else, or maybe you've received it yourself from somebody. And it's complicated, it's messy. And so over the next 8 weeks, I know, uh, we're going to go on this journey of trying to understand it. And not just understand it because being all head knowledge um, does nothing, by the way. I've met some of the most brilliant people, but they're also the most useless people. And I say that to their face. No, I don't. Um, that would be ungraceful. And so I don't want to simply just do that. We're going to talk about the practices of this stuff. How do we start incorporating these things into our lives? Yeah, so here we go. We're asking the question, what is grace? When I was young, a friend of mine reflected on a moment in which he fell from grace. He made a really bad choice. Flat on his face, he's fallen. Like it's not my story to tell, but I could tell this part of the story because I was with him on this. And he kind of gets through a little bit of the scenario, and in this he should have faced consequences, deep consequences, life changing consequences, and he was given grace, and this messed up his head because he wasn't allowed to be punished. Uh, and he knew he did something wrong. And there's something in us. Some of it's from the way we were parented. Some of it is just like our own. We want to like create equity within the things that we do wrong. Like, did you ever hit a sibling and then they started crying and then run to their parents and you said, you can hit me back? Um, Nobody, or maybe your kids did that. Okay. I did that. I got that was no, don't tell him. Like, you can hit me, like as if that makes it better. And really, I didn't want to get the larger punishment. So if I can get the punishment I can control, then I can manage it. Then I don't have to feel guilty anymore. Then I don't have to feel shame because I initiated the punishment. And so there was a conflict within him. Is he should have there should have been justice dealt, and they didn't allow it. Instead, gave him grace. And in a sobering moment, he turned to me and said, Eric, there is one thing I would do if I had to start my walk with God all over again. I would focus on grace alone until until I believed that it was for me. I believe now more than ever that my friend was right. I had no response to that. I was really young and I was just like, yeah, like I'm just here to make sure you don't break down in the same way that you fell down. And so this is, if we understand, here's what I believe. If we understand and live with God's grace in mind, it will change us in immeasurable ways, like down to your DNA. In that, I mean, it will change the way your kids behave. Like it will change generations if we do the work to do this. If we go through the deep topic of grace, there will be grandkids and great grandkids in your life that in their DNA, there's an understanding of grace. And it'll start with you. And you have this awesome opportunity. And I want you to think of the legacy, but I want you to think of the small part, which is just where you're at right now. God's grace is expressed love, unveiled through unmerited mercy and undeserved forgiveness. It is a resource that is never ending and unfailing. And here's our first lesson that I want us to build upon this super abundant, never ending concept. This is important because the foundation needs to be big enough, wide enough, and strong enough to hold all that we're going to be learning over the next couple weeks. It's this: God's grace is God's deep love for us. This sentence contains some really important words: God, love, grace, and so there's a lot. The book will be bigger, and so in the sake that I'm not keeping you guys here all day, come over to my house and we can have a full conversation about it. In fact, come to Life Group. And which is at my house, one of them. And here's this: to understand and practice grace, we must first recognize its source. This is the first one. Is God. This is grace is God's deep love, and so it comes from Him. He is grace. Any grace that you might express or someone might have expressed to you, it came from Him. In the same way that everything came from Him. This isn't a new idea that we came up with, or because like our parents maybe parent us well and helping give us grace opportunities. It didn't come from mom and dad. It didn't come from their mom and dad. It came from Him. And so we're going to try to go back to this source here and try to get to that original place. I can teach you about grace, but without acknowledging its source, it's just words. And many of us have experienced this idea, as my friend did, when someone showed you grace, when you deserved punishment, but that grace over you felt wrong. Because then, when there was a slight mess up again, it didn't feel like that grace extended past that one time. And that's not grace. We'll get to that in the next couple of weeks. But that is not its wholeness. It's not that it would be held over you. I'm going to forgive you so that I can keep you on a leash. That's not grace. And so then when we bring it into the concept of God, and He is the originator of grace, and the only way that we've received grace is it became a constraint and not something that broke chains. We're going to see God in a different light. We're going to then see the concept of grace that is the narrative of the Bible in a really restricting, controlled understanding. I love this. One of my favorite authors, A.W. Tozer, and thinkers, he said this: what comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. When you think the word God, what comes to mind? If somebody were to come up to you off the street, and better yet, a coworker came up to you and said, "Hey, this God, I saw you go to church. Who is God?" How would you explain him? What would you say? Is, right? Is he this guy that sits in the clouds with a big white beard and throws thunderbolts when you do something wrong? Maybe you grew up in the church and he's this omnipresent thing that then feels like you have this ghost over your shoulder judging you because you're making mistakes daily, like in hourly for some, like for me, I feel like I'm making a mistake hourly, just in the like the other day. I said I was going to be home at like 5:30, and then like at like 5:20 my wife's texting me, and she goes, "Hey," because she can see my location on the phone. She goes, "Hey, just making sure you're on your way home." Like she's being really sweet about it. Um, and and I go, "Yep." I almost at my car. I was nowhere near my car. Um, but in my head, almost near my car is a really vague distance, and so like I technically was, even if I was a mile away, right, Kyle? So I'm not lying. I just wasn't heading in that direction. And so, but that's an opportunity. For what we're going to practice. If God has been confined to places of correction in times of tragedy, whenever we're facing really hardships and we shout to the heavens and ask for God to free us from, which again, I'm not putting that down. Please do that. He will answer. He will be there. You're not likely to want to think about him. Meaning it just won't be something like when you go through something good, you won't think, oh, I should thank God, like because anything good is coming from him. Like it's just not going to be a default thought. Or when you're in an argument with your spouse, your first thought is going to be just to sit in the anger of that instead of, God, I don't want to feel this way. Help me, help them, help me, help us. Like are you kind of getting what I'm saying right here? So we need to get to that place, and the way that you get to that place is helping define. When somebody says, who is God, simply say this: God loves me. You don't need any other definition beyond that. Well, how does he love you? Great question. I'm breathing. I'm here. In the entire universe and his concept of everything, he said, I need you because I want to love you. Out of all the things that could have happened in the just the whole birthing process and bringing life into this world, how many things could go wrong, but you made it here. I never want to hear that somebody says that I'm an accident. You've never been an accident. God doesn't make accidents. He makes good things. And he is good. His grace extends to all of this stuff. This is everything that everything is built off of. The story of God is recorded in a book-shaped library we call the Bible. This library holds the accounts of God's incredible acts of love towards you and me. And at first glance, it appears like mythology, right? It's kind of odd. You start getting angels and demons and creations and talking snakes, and you're like, how do I reason with this? And before you can even ask that question and you keep reading, it suddenly turns into history. And you're like, okay. And then it turns into a law document. And you're like, what am I reading? And then you read like these like accounts of people just like randomly killing people. And you're like, what is going on in this book? Like Game of Thrones makes more sense. Like, and that's not even English most of the time. Like this is really complicated. And then without warning, you start getting war, kings, queens, prophets, angels, genocidal warlords, and wrathful witches. This is in the Bible, and slowly but surely you forget that this is about God and how he loves you. The whole point, the whole core of this. So my job, Pastor Natalie's job, is not to read the Bible for you. as complicated and as odd it is, sometimes our job is not to, if this is the only time that you are absorbing the Bible, you are missing it, right? You are missing the revelation that he wants to give just to you. This is the corporate message. This is us coming together, and he's saying, here's just the blanket that's being thrown out, and everybody can receive this. What is it for you? There are things that as I read the Bible, as I pray, and God reveals to me, I never reveal it to anyone else because it's not for you. It's not about you. And if I tell you, you're going to make it about you. And not because you're bad, because you're hoping for revelation, and hopefully someone who is saying, God is helping me and he's telling me this. I don't feel like God's helping me, so maybe it's you, and I'll just do whatever you're doing. I think there's more to that. So here is my job, though. My job is to help make the Bible easier to read. I believe this is the best way to read the Bible. Think of it this way. Every story in the Bible can be broken down in this way. Is this about a person or people receiving grace from God? Is this about a person or people practicing grace? If grace is God's expression of love throughout the entire Bible, then this question can be answered after every single story. And when my friend says, if I could go back and drop everything I've learned and reread the Bible with grace in mind, if you decided today, I'm starting in Genesis, and at the end of every time that it ends a story and hops to a new character, or ends a story and it feels like there's a nice little bow on this little ideal right here, and you ask the question, is this about a person or people receiving grace from God? And is this about them practicing grace? You are going to, it's just going to bloom. It's going to blossom. Some of these things that are confusing, you're going to realize I don't need to figure out what the seraphim are and how many eyes they have. Like that's it just becomes muddled, messy waters. I'm not saying it's not important or it's not biblical or any of that. It's there and it's right and it's good, but start at grace and then work your way out. Some of us, our capacity of like the depth of knowledge that some people have about the Bible is just much lower. And that's, I believe, okay. If Heather, you do hair, like you work in a salon, you're a business owner, that's your calling. That's God has designed you for that. But that doesn't mean he didn't design you to read his word. But it does mean that like now there's a journey of I've learned the expressions of God's love, and now I carry it into the things that he's called me to do. For me, he's called me to teach and preach and pastor, so I go deeper. But that's so I could be here. That's why I can resource that stuff. So, okay, I hope you guys are hearing this. So both of these questions are actions of love. Are we receiving grace from God, or these people, or are these people practicing grace? You'll start to see the story more clearly. You'll also begin to see the relationship with God and with us develops through grace. The beginning of the journey is a zero understanding of grace. And the goal, by the way, of the book of Revelation is God's full grace being revealed. That's all that. So beginning, we know nothing. The end of the book, we are with his grace at all times, with no limits, with no nothing. Like we fully understand at the end. Because that's how life works. When you were born, you did not know how to walk. Good, right? Because your brain needed to develop in stages to become a type of person that not only could walk, but run and sprint, and then teach others to walk and run and sprint, so that then they could teach others to walk, then run, then sprint. That is, God designed us in this developmental way. And so our understanding of grace can be that in the same thing. Like any other relationships, there are ups and downs, failures and its successes. And the Bible highlights these for a reason. Through the history of God's people, we learn to love God and be loved by God. In these stories of God's love, we see him giving direction on how to stay in a relationship with him. Yes, God loves us deeply, but we have a part to play. Do we love him, and will we be loved by him? This is key because grace does have a wall that only we can break down. If he broke it down, you wouldn't receive it. You wouldn't understand it. Think of spoiled children. And we go, well, if God really loved, it would be this lavish thing. How has that worked for spoiled children? Do they end up being healthy, reasonable, steady, long lasting, community serving, on like having a greater concept than self? No. In fact, every book and movie that we read about those spoiled children becoming whole, reasonable people, they have to face a major tragedy, like a massive, like you might die level of tragedy to get out of that headspace. But then so many heroes of stories that we love started in the humblest places and then worked to places of success, of prosperity, of provision that God wants for us to live in. God, okay, this is not my notes, but little side tangent. Life is not meant to just be survived. You're meant to thrive. And sometimes this has been turned into prosperity messages, which it always, so, I think so grossly turned into just financial. I believe God doesn't want us to suffer financially, and he gives us examples of how to manage finances in our lives. There are teachings within this, more specifically on how to be generous with the blessings that God gives you instead of being stingy. So if you are a person that has the ability to bring in wealth and income at a high level in your life, he's the teachings mostly about money in the Bible is how to live humbly and generously as he has blessed you with that gift. Not everybody has that gift. That's okay. All of us want that gift, which is why it's really easy to stand up in front of people and say, God wants to make you rich. And we go, yes, because I want to be rich. And God wants you to be rich in so many other things. And he wants you to thrive in so many other things. And if all you're focused on is money, you can get money pretty fast. There's some work, but you can figure it out. Like I know this might be like controversial or tension, but you can sell your body for a lot of money really quickly. Like and I mean that I mean that in funny and sad. If you want money fast, sell yourself, give it away. Who cares? That's not the goal. The goal is money. But that's not thriving, that's surviving. And that is not what he wants you to do. So, his grace is the flow and pattern to get you to place of thriving, to get you to that understanding. But we have this limit on this. A couple weeks ago, Pastor Natalie preached a message from a book called The Five Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. The book exists to help resource us to understand what is our preferred ways to receive love. If anybody, the message did address this, but if you've ever read that or other personality tests, it wasn't to confine you of like, this is me and I don't receive love through touch. Chill out. It's a preferred way of doing things. Well, this personality test said that I'm an introvert, so I don't have to like make like 5 more friends. Stop. Your preferred is introvert, but you are quit defining you by things that are limiters. Like that's not how God defines you. God says, if I need to make you a hero in faith and put you in front of people, I'm gonna do that. You call yourself an introvert, it just means like after you're done doing that, you got to go on a week vacation by yourself. Like, are you hearing what I'm saying? Like output and input, like just that's all those things mean. Like, and so same thing with this. Did you know that God has a preferred love language? He also has a preferred way for you to express love towards him. Let me break it down this way. God shows his love through grace. We show our love through obedience. I hate that word. I'm a rebel, mostly without a cause. Almost always without a cause. And so this idea of obedience is so containing and so confining to me. It's restrictive. And I'm like, I love bowling with bumpers on. Um, And here's why. I like bouncing against boundaries and knowing that I'm gonna hit the pins every time. Like that. If the world revolved around me, it would just be people dealing with me and then me winning every time. Like and all of you don't get bumpers. You have to roll down the lane and then I get to make fun of you. Um to the vulnerability, like again, maybe some of us don't want to admit, and some of you're good people, so you're like, no, everyone else gets bumpers, and I have to struggle. And, uh, anyways, like there's all this stuff, but obedience is it's just a weird word, especially as it's developed, and especially in our Western culture, and obedience is has become this like gross thing. Like sometimes most of it's been like in the context of relationships. In that, and to be in a relationship means you just have to be blindly obedient. But what happens when like the thing they're asking you to be obedient about is harmful, is hurtful, is dangerous. And then what you hear in the Bible is be obedient and do this and suffer through this. And you go, that's no. It, it, God's message is not like be abused and thank him for it. Like that's not so, but he also like and this is becoming a little bit of a running theme, and so if there's some conflict in this, come talk to me. I seriously want to have this conversation, but we have gone so far in kind of like abandoning words that God chooses really carefully that we no longer let it apply to him. Obedience is one of those. And we go, obedience has meant this really gross thing. And so, in order for you to tell me that God wants me to be obedient, well, that's not my God. And you're going to have to wrestle with the fact that throughout his word, he says, be obedient. And so, then here's what you're going to do. You're going to stop reading, and then you're going to create a different God. And then now we have thousands of denominations that are all about how do we just reason with all like these kinds of concepts right here, including something like grace. But the way we show our love to God is through obedience. Let's practice a little bit of what I just, all of what I just talked about today. So we're going to read part of the Bible. I'm going to show you guys how to do this, how to read through the lens of grace. I want to lay this foundation really clear because I'm going to bring up a lot of things over the next 8 weeks. And a lot of these things need the foundation of asking these questions. Is this about a people or a person receiving grace, or is this about people practicing grace right here? So, Exodus chapter 3, verse 7, we get the beginning stories of God freeing his people from slavery in Egypt. The Israelites are in a bad place, and it opens with God coming to a runaway criminal named Moses. And he says this imperfect person. He is 80 years old at this point. He's a shepherd hiding in the desert. And he comes to this mountain and sees a burning bush. Again, crazy. And this burning bush calls out and says, I'm God, which is, again, a little odd. Jim Gaffigan has a bit and he says, like, Moses, I think you were burning a little bush there. And this burning bush calls out from it and he says this, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering. So I've come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. In other parts of the Bible, this is described as a place in which he can dwell with his people and his people dwell with him. If you're wondering, we chose the name dwell for a reason. God is trying to lead us to promised lands where we can dwell with him. Okay, so let's stop right here in the story and ask a question. Is this about a person or people receiving grace from God? Yes. By the way, what's easy about this question is the answer is always yes. Like the question is how. That's what we're gonna dive into. Is this about a person or people practicing grace? No, not yet. And that's okay. This is going to help us define the story of who and what we're reading about. We get in this, we get no other person's perspective. We just get God's voice and what he says he's going to do. And the grace is that he hears the cries of his suffering people. I need you to know you may not have heard the audible voice of God. And there might be a time of loneliness where it feels like all voices are absent, but he hears the cry of his hurt, enslaved, suffering people. It's important. This is his grace that the creator of the universe, that is described in the Bible to understand the scale of his immense power, says that he holds this universe in the palm of his hand, between his thumb and his pinky. It is to not describe the measurable size, but the awe-striking power of who he is. And he hears you. What a grace. He doesn't have any other delegators. If you read any other religious mythology, Greek, Roman, Norse, like all of these things, even I'm a Native American First People, like in my cultural heritage, like there's all of this. There is a higher power, and then it's delegated to lower powers. He doesn't do that. He's one and does it all. And here's you and you and you and you. And why? Because he loves you. And what a grace that he gives into us with this. God uses Moses to lead the Israelites out of slavery. The people are led to a mountain to receive direction on how to stay in relationship, how to keep receiving this grace and understanding it. Not that it was limited, but that how we can tune in, right? What the people were feeling was an absence of grace. Even though it was there, now there's an action of grace and they feel it. How do we keep that going? Again, look at resources. If you receive like a bonus from your employer from doing a good job at work, hopefully your thought is, wow, I did good work. They acknowledged it, and then I received a resource that I needed. How do I keep getting that? How do I keep this same understanding? It's not demanded, but it's there. I love this. He leads people to this mountain. God explains, I've shown undeserved mercy. By the way, the Israelites got into slavery because they asked for it. They asked to be led by their slave masters. So he gives undeserved mercy, unmerited forgiveness. This is grace. He says it because I love you. Now, here's how we stay out of slavery. While Moses and God are having this one on one conversation, these wild people melt all their gold down and it forms the shape of a cow. And they go, this must be God. What? Like, and again, let's read parts of the story. They don't know any better. And we do this. Uh, Go with your relationships, right? Anybody have a boyfriend or girlfriend that they like help like you started dating because they helped you out of a difficult situation, and then you realize that wasn't the standard of a good relationship, was that they only helped me. And then whenever you started practicing some independence of creating your own paths, and then they started going, why won't you let me be your partner? That wasn't your job. Like, like honestly, you were just a really great friend who was cute. Like, and then I was lonely. And so I made a golden calf. This is where we're at. So here's God's response to this. How quickly they have turned away from me. I sent plagues and fires and tornadoes. I split oceans. And then I told you how to do this and how quickly you turned away from me. They melted down a gold and made a calf, and they have bowed down and sacrificed to it. They're literally doing blood offerings like pagan rituals. They are saying, these are our gods, O Israel, who have brought you out of the land of Egypt. Then the Lord said, I have seen how stubborn and rebellious these people are. Now leave me alone so my fierce anger can blaze against them, and I will destroy them. Then I will make you, Moses, into a great nation. I'm going to start over. I'm going to do the Abraham thing. Just get back. Noah, Abraham. You know what? I've done it before. Going to do it again. Let's ask our questions again. Is this about a person or people receiving grace from God? Yes. Then this is going to be in conflict with everything I just spent the last 25 minutes talking about, because this does not sound like God loves me. This sounds like what I've heard before. And so, Pastor Aeric, why are you wasting my time? I already believed he hated me and wanted to burn me alive because I lied as a 7-year-old and stole a candy bar, and I still live with that guilt. There's our small example. Now go big for your personal self. Okay. And you carry that, and I want to be punished, and I deserve to be punished. And that's what pastors have told me, is that this is how God deals with me because I'm a human. And so now, like, I don't invite people to church because I don't want them to feel this way. In fact, I don't want to go to church. So I only go when I feel guilty because I'm afraid of hell. And this is now my relationship. And this is now confirmed. Thank you, Pastor Aeric. I now understand grace, is he doesn't have any. This is multifaceted, this story, deeply theological. God's burning anger is grace because, and this is key, God is always right. Do you feel the silence? Not as many mm-hms. And yeah, preach it, Pastor. This is key right here because this will inform everything we're going to talk about. God's grace is only as good as his righteousness. Our ability to be loved by God through his grace towards us depends on our willingness to believe without reservation that God is right. This will be hard. Righteousness simply means rightness. This requires us to accept that God is right, that we have sinned against him, we have disobeyed. God is the creator who has the right to judge, the right to give or not give grace, to show mercy or forgiveness or not. He has full right. What we call right is uh, another difficult word. Just presenting difficult words, Mari, as a words person. And I don't know, let's wrestle with it through life group. It's a little bit of the sliding scale. What's right for me isn't right for you. For example, what's right for me is wearing a jacket that looks like my grandma's couch. Um, And what's right for you might be Air Force Ones and oversized t-shirts. That I mean, I don't think I could pull it off, but I also just like my grandma's couch. Like, and that feels right for me. So there's our little example. Let's go a little bit bigger from here. What's right for me is when I discipline my son, I make it really clear that when he disobeys, he is breaking relationship with me. And you go to a 4-year-old? Yes. And some of you might hear this and go, well, that's not how you teach a 4-year-old. Well, maybe. Well, let's show this journey as the 4-year-old's in here. It's okay. He never listens to me anyways. Um, my son Rigby loves to draw. As you can see, he's drawing down here for people in the front rows, which by the way, sit in the front rows. It's better. You get more of God. That's not true. Um, every paper since he was like 2, every paper he draws at daycare he brings home and wants to show it off, to the point that like it's felt like guilt that we don't show it to other people, and so we've like over the years tried to think of different ways but just don't want to put the work in to highlight his art and have like a rotating thing that he could be proud of and show off. But really what happens is you just come over and he just brings out like a pile of papers and like throws it on the table and goes, look, like, say how nice they are now. Like, and you'll see like half of them are pictures of lions, and that's his thing. We love that. I have a stack of papers in my office of pictures that him and my other boys have drawn that I'm probably going to keep forever, because it's these time capsules of who they are and how they see the world and how the best ways that they can interpret it. Some kids don't have the vocabulary to express that, but they have the ability to draw it. And it's beautiful. I love it. I'm an artist. I love drawings. Do more of it. Do that stuff. And so imagine my son's surprise that whenever he colors all over our living room wall, that I react negatively to it. Now, some of you were over at our house during that time and saw this beautiful drawing that was underneath the TV on our living room wall, and acknowledge. And we told a story, and most of the story was, yes, Rigby colored on the wall. And this was our response to it. And we didn't paint over it. Like, and so we did, like, this is what it is. And so when he is in this, when he drew this picture on the wall, he believes he is right. Dad loves my drawings. Mom loves when I draw. Look at this white wall that looks like paper. Why not make a beautiful picture for them? Like, I mean, I don't know for sure, but like, I I don't think he was like, now I'm gonna get him. Because when people do that, there's a lot more swear words on it. And so I think it was. I think I'm right, and I think they're gonna love this. You ever given a gift you think people were gonna love, and they're like, "Thanks," and you're like, yeah, I'm sorry I threw away the receipt, so I guess give it to someone else." Like it feels horrible. Like, and so I'm reacting negatively to this. So what do I do? As his parent, I have the right to punish him. I have full right. It is my authority as his father. Legally, spiritually, relationally, I can punish him. I can also not punish him. And potentially, to the spoiled child thing, he'll do it again. Which, by the way, don't go in their room or in the playroom, as he's done it again. Like, if you're offended by pictures on walls, this is where we're at right here. This is the tension of this moment. Much of God's righteousness is revealed to us in hindsight, or when you're above the situation. I think higher than my 4-year-old thinks. not because I'm better, but because I've matured. My brain is bigger. I've lived life. I've colored on walls and have received grace or punishment for that. And so this is what we're dealing with. God's reaction to the Israelites coloring on the wall seems misaligned with his grace. But I want us to look at this because prophet Isaiah, like I just said, says this about God's righteousness. His thoughts are not my thoughts, and his ways are not my ways. I am not right, especially as in comparison to how he is right. And so it's going to feel confusing within this. Consider the events. God hears a call for grace and response, continuing to show his grace through provision and freedom, all without Israel's participation. They're doing nothing. Again, asking the questions, is this a person or people practicing this? No. All of like this whole section, in fact, the whole book of Exodus is no. Like except these little parts right here. And I want to point this out in just a second. Is this about a person or people practicing grace? Yes. Among thousands, Moses, who experienced God's expression of grace firsthand, intimately. He heard the cry of God to his people. He enacted the miracles. And he is up on the mountain writing down direction. And Moses says this. I'm wrapping up, I promise, for those who are bored. Exodus 13, verse 14. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is Moses talking to God. You bound yourself with an oath to them, saying, I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in heaven. I will give them all this land that I promised to your descendants, and they will possess it forever. So the Lord changed his mind about the terrible disaster he had threatened to bring on his people. Much, a lot, entire books, entire thesis papers that are still being written by theology students and all this stuff has been written about this exchange. The conversations range from whether we can change the will of God to that God can be wrong, or if God is admitting that he is wrong. And I believe the answer to all these questions is no. Each time we see the petitions of prayer that the Bible calls changing the mind of God, they are moments of him looking for someone, anyone, to show grace. The same way that he does, to act in obedience, to love God gives, to the love that God gives, and to take on the burden that he also carries. Here's this, and capture this. God is looking to partner with you in giving grace to those who do not deserve it. And that includes grace to yourself. Worship team, would you guys come forward? He wants us to partner in this relationship of grace. It's not a self-serving thing. Yes, we get a lot from this, but the extension, the obedience part of this, all the directions that they're given in Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy are about, I want you to practice this, and then I want you to give it out to people. Like he literally has specific directions of, I'm going to make you the best farmers in the entire world. And part of you being a good farmer is you are going to leave whatever you don't need. And I'm going to define what you need. It's going to be based on a number and a group of people. And everything else, don't be greedy. In fact, leave it in the field and let those who are on the outside come and get their amount so that they can survive. This is awesome. This is awesome. Because then you could go, God's got a plan. And it's to give me grace, to show something I haven't seen before. He establishes a rule of life that sets a standard for the need of mercy and forgiveness. And it seems unfair to those who only want to do whatever they want. But you can ask this way to anyone facing this, how is that working out for humanity? Even if you think you are perfect or morally right by your standards, which you may have chosen or adopted from someone else, you are still dealing with another person doing the same thing. That standard should not push us away. God's standard should not push us away. It should pull us in. We got to do some work with this. I'm convinced that Jesus' greatest parable was the story of the prodigal son. The story is about a son taking as much money as he wants. This unlimited supply that the father can give, the son just, like a slot machine, keeps ringing until it pours out, and then runs away with it and spoils it because he has no standard of right, because he abandoned it with his father. And in a moment of desperation, he goes, it's even better to go back to my father's house. Here's a cool part of the story. In his lowest state, he realizes that his father is so good that even though he did the worst thing, his father would still bring him home. This is an awesome example of what God's trying to do. As the son returns the father in his love runs to the son. But the key section right here is the father's standard never changed. It doesn't say that the father goes and searches and runs into the hills and in back alleys and goes and researches and talks to drug dealers and prostitutes. If that's your journey, go on it. But to the standard and what the story is trying to tell, it says that the father stood right where he always was. But then when he saw his son coming, he runs to him. When he saw the son run, he runs. And this wasn't the father not loving him, it was the father showing grace through the standard of righteousness. And then when we go, I've been disobedient, I've messed this up. How do I know that? I don't like the life I'm living. Run to the Father. He will meet you in his beautiful grace. And not only that, he won't make you a slave. He'll make you a prince and princess in his kingdom. This is the truth that we are facing. When the son recognized the absence of his father's grace, he came home. This will be next week. I'm going to leave you here. As almost the final act of grace that has lasted already for 2,000 years, he sends his son Jesus as an act of righteousness and grace and love. And asks us, through his example, if we're willing to be the walking, breathing example of grace. It's gonna require us to change a lot about ourselves. Like I said, to the very DNA of who you are. You are going to have to fundamentally change, actively change how you think and act. Some of that means you're like on this journey we're about to go through, and then the journey later, you're gonna go through withdrawals. It's gonna hurt, but his grace will walk with you.